this is automated control here. Manual control, so putting an item through a metal detector. It's good because it's the individual can use judgment and through the process, putting it through. Does something look weird? Something's just not right about this as I'm moving it through the metal detection process. The problem is, obviously manual controls are a weakness because human error. I don't want to state the obvious, but the other one is that what if the person's not trained? What if they don't know what to look for? What if if they don't know how to raise the issues to the supervisor? What do I do if there's an issue here? So that's certainly a weakness to that process. So what do? You want to make sure that the people understand their job responsibilities. So constantly training, making sure your standard operating procedures are distributed, they're available, people are talking about them, and they're out there. Also, you want to ensure the metal detector is working. Maybe do a control once a day or a couple times a day. Make sure it's detecting metal. You hate to have that thing not working. So anyway, so those are a couple examples that we really look for when you're talking about internal controls. And there's a couple different ways to do it. I mean, you're obviously just not adding a checklist. You're not adding somebody else reviewing it. But looking at locking down user access rights. Making sure that people are well trained. Back to the ERM team. What are they going to do with those? A couple examples, that I gave there. But when you're looking at internal controls and doing it, you want to pull people that are part of the inspection team that understand those critical control points. You want to look for an executive or some kind of VP level person that can push through any roadblocks you see in the program, make things happen. ERM gets stalled out a lot of times, and you want somebody who can really get it done. And then you can't do it without back office, accounting, and finance people, because if you don't bring them in, you're not going to get the full cycle. You're only going to maybe look at the operational component. You certainly want the finance group, even though we're all busy, I understand, but they are critical to ERM. And they're going to understand the company a lot better than previously known, and they're going to come up with some great conclusions during the brainstorming process. And that's really one great benefit we see. People are talking, like I said, that have never talked before. One thing I want to point out is that when we're talking about bureaucracy and adding layers to it, look at your inspection process, see who's coming in and what are they looking at, do some pre-inspection reviews. It makes you sleep better at night, it knows where your critical risks are, because they're looking at that, they're going to focus on that. So that's one starting point for you. The other thing that I'm really going to emphasize is training. Looking at your HR function, how good are they at training, how good are they at making sure that people understand their roles and responsibilities, the hiring, firing practice. The greatest control of all is getting the right people in place. If you get the right person doing their job and they understand why they're doing a control, why their function is there, then they'll be able to perform it at the highest level possible. And that's the best thing you can do. You can make somebody fill out a form, you can have another person double check it all day long, but one of the best things you can do is properly train employees. And that's going to reduce your risk the greatest. Other areas, if you're looking for things, looking for internal controls to address or areas to address, look at what gets the most attention on the financial statements, not from just your auditors, but also what are people looking at monthly, looking at margins. Okay, well let's understand the risk within those margin analysis that everybody's looking at internally, and let's do a deeper dive. And once again, the brainstorming, understand, get the ERM team together and start talking about how to address those risks, how to reduce them, because you don't want things to go public. I mean, that's the fact. You don't want to be shut down. You don't want want food to be tainted. You don't want any issues with the quality of your product. Or even just back office stuff. You don't want to deal with it. I mean, you want it to run smoothly, and ERM really helps you get there. And it doesn't take a huge effort. It just takes a smart effort. And so it's a long-term project. And I'm just kind of concluding here, but and reiterating some critical things. But it's a long-term project. Just accept it, but know where you want to be. Where do you want to be in 12 months? Where do you want to be in 18 months and 2 years, and so on. Identify which risks can go wrong and how it can go wrong, and so make sure you do that. Come up with good planning, come up with stated goals. Why do projects fail? They lose momentum. you already have jobs, right? ERM is just another one of the things that you have to do with your job. The fact is, don't let it lose momentum. Make sure that somebody's always going to be making it move forward. I have a client that does that. They have somebody who's just, if you're in a meeting and you say you're going to do it, you're going to get an email later that day saying, you owe us this and this is when it's due, and if you don't get it by that due date, another email goes out and it CCs everybody, including that executive who's pushing through the project, and you don't want to be on that distribution list. So that's critical, and then get the team out there and get them talking, because like I said, there's benefits beyond just internal controls and better internal controls. It's really making the company and the organization run more smoothly. With that, I wanted to pause and see if there are any questions that I can field at this time. Like I said, there will be a presentation or opportunity at the end to answer some questions as well. Yes.
What are the typical obstacles that get in the way of ERM implementation at mid-sized companies? How companies overcome them?
Thanks. So the question was, what are the typical obstacles at mid-sized companies with regards to ERM, and how do they overcome them? Well, ERM is very popular in the larger company arena. It's talked about. SAP, if you're a debt holder, they come in and they do a review, and ERM is one of the things they're looking at. Companies have project teams, larger corporations, international corporations have project teams. They have this Go Green initiative. They have all these things where you can, they have the manpower to do it. Whereas the mid-sized companies lack the people power to actually go in there and do the ERM implementation. That's one hurdle we see, just the resources to do it. The other hurdle that we often see is the know-how. It can be overwhelming at times because it looks at the enterprise as a whole, and so knowing who to talk to, even if it's a smaller company with 300 people or so, or 150 people, knowing who to talk to and what to do. When you identify a risk and you go, great, it's a risk, what do we do? We see that as a hurdle as well.
Where are we at globally in terms of the risk management? The U.S., Europe, Asia, places like that. We've traveled a lot. From your perspective, we're ahead, behind, and some of the risks inherent from importing product from some of these other areas, things like that.
Good question. So the question was, where is the U.S. in regards to, in respect to other companies, other countries in terms of risk?
And managing risk.
Okay, managing the process of risk. Well, I would argue that the U.S. is probably behind Europe in a lot of ways. They've made great strides in managing risk, and they're very open. They're kind of an open book policy. If you look at their disclosures to their home country, they're fairly extensive on risk. But compared to Asia, we are far ahead on risk, and it's just because they're very less open about disclosing any information. I've seen a lot of companies domestically here looking at risk overseas, the risk that my China supplier has a problem with the food. So really the first step I'm seeing is a lot of diversification from China suppliers, or for U.S. companies relying on Chinese suppliers. Seeing a lot of diversification. Vietnam's becoming a new market, so we're seeing new markets opening up as well. So not just a different supplier in the same country, but a different supplier in a different country. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, I'll be here for a little while if you have other questions. So happy to answer.